Hey everybody, this is Erica, the technology nerd who likes to film stuff, and I finally got my hands on the HTC 10. I bought this myself on pre-order, better late than never. Tons of you guys have been asking me non-stop about this phone, so I figured I'd get something out as quickly as I could. So after 72 hours, I kind of want to answer the question, is this worth it compared to some of the other smartphones that have come out on the market this year? So let's get into some of the good points of what I think makes this phone worth it, and we'll also talk about some of the bad points as well. I think the first thing that makes it worth it is this build quality. This is a really nicely built phone. When we talk about a solid machined metal phone, that would be this. It does not feel cheap in the slightest. It's got a really nice bit of weight to it. It's actually a bit chunky if you're looking at it compared to the competition. But because it's curved, it's got an excellent in-hand feel, so I don't complain too much about that chunkiness. So taking a little bit of a look at the design of this phone, there's no way you could confuse this device for any other device at this point. This crazy chamfer that everyone is talking about, it is as pronounced as everyone says it is. It's like 10% of the back of the phone. I think it looks nice, honestly, and it does lend to a very comfortable in-hand feel. I'm actually really happy about what HTC has done here because for their past several phones, they've all looked the same. I know if it's not broken, don't fix it, but it is nice to see something change once in a while. This looks very different from the whole M series, and they've even taken away the M. This is just the HTC 10. Gone are the days of having this random black bar at the bottom and then having on-screen navigation to where the display is really small, 5 inches. Now this is 5.2 inches. And the navigation is now at the bottom here. Really a thumbs up. I feel that the display is not only bigger, obviously, because it's 5.2 inches, but since you don't have that navigation bar obstructing everything, the display definitely feels more immersive, so A+ on that end. Of course, you're now missing those front-firing stereo speakers, and we'll get into that. But now we do have rooms for some capacitive buttons and a fingerprint sensor, so overall I'm happy with those changes. But it's also a double-edged sword, it's also bittersweet. So these capacitive buttons, I have the key lights staying on because I think they're a little bit awkwardly placed, but very happy with them. Very nice and responsive. I always expect them to be here or here, so they're a little bit more low placed than I would expect. So I left the key light on so I could always remember where they are, otherwise I'll feel and kind of push around and miss them. But you do have the option to turn off this key light. So this fingerprint sensor that we have here is a really excellent choice as well, I think. It doesn't click, but you can turn on the display with it, and it's very quick and very accurate. I would have preferred it on the back. Ever since playing with the Nexus 6P, I've always preferred the fingerprint sensor to be on the back, but it is very fast, very responsive, so that's an A+. Also, HTC has emphasized their buttons. They're very nice, very clicky, so they do have nice buttons on this device. So that all lends to a positive experience, and that's what really matters to me with a smartphone is how nice is the experience, and this one's pretty good. Then you have your SIM card tray, you've also got your SD card slot, so that's all still here. 3000 milliamp hour battery, it's a little bit bigger than last year. On the back we have a 12 megapixel camera, so we've got our bigger pixels here, also optical image stabilization. Thank you HTC for that. We've got our dual tone LED flash, and there's also a laser autofocus. There's also a microphone here. Then on the bottom we have a USB-C port for charging. It does charge very quickly, which is nice. You have a microphone, you've got the speaker. On the top we have a standard headphone jack. This looks like it's for the antenna. No IR blaster, unfortunately. There's also an inclusion of a 24-bit DAC inside of this headphone amplifier, so this is really a nice inclusion. Then looking at the front, we have a 5 megapixel camera that has optical image stabilization as well. That's really neat as an inclusion HTC, especially for video bloggers who like to blog with a front-facing camera. That would be me. Then we have the ambient light sensor, proximity sensor, and we have our receiver, which is also a speaker. That's one thing I wanted to point out right now. So gone are the days of the stereo front-facing speakers, and this is going to be a sore point for a lot of HTC fans, including myself. I've actually been kind of a little bit conflicted. I don't know if you can call this something that's going to make the phone not worth it, but it very may well for some. So the M7, the M8, even the M9 have these stereo front-facing speakers, and that's just not the setup that we have anymore. HTC is calling this BoomSound Hi-Fi Edition. And so we've all been hearing that we have a tweeter here, the high frequency speaker, and then the low frequency speaker, the woofer here. And I have gotten in contact with HTC, and they say that this is now playing separated mono. So if you are to play a stereo track, it should downmix to mono. That is at least what I was assuming. So that would mean that you would hear the same thing on either side, except for you would hear the high frequencies here and the low frequencies here. But that's not what I'm seeing in practice. And that's what has confused me a little bit. Either HTC has done a lot on their software algorithm side to emulate stereo, or this indeed does have a left and a right channel playing. And I'm waiting to hear back from HTC on this to see what is actually going on. But what I'm saying is that when I play something that's stereo, just say that it's testing out the left and the right channel, this side only plays the left channel, this side only plays the right channel. So here's just a little sample.
This is the left channel.
Left channel only is playing right now, not this one.
Next, we have the center channel.
Both are playing right now.
Over here is the right channel.
Only the right one is playing, not this one.
This is the right surround channel.
Still, only this one.
This is the left surround channel.
Only this one.
The next sound you'll hear is the LFE channel.
So I've just been a little bit confused because this doesn't work as I would have assumed, which would have been to take a stereo track and downmix it to mono. So I'll see what that's all about, and maybe you guys have some answers. You can put those in the comment section below as well. So how does this actually sound though? What is the experience? Well, for me, it sounds best when I'm listening to the phone in portrait mode because both my ears are hearing the same thing. As soon as I turn it to landscape, it feels a little bit weird. It almost feels like one of my ears is plugged. That low frequency, high frequency effect feels kind of odd. You can switch between different modes though. So you can switch between the theater mode or the music mode, and I really would recommend keeping it on theater mode for most of the time, especially when you're watching YouTube or Netflix. I don't know what it is exactly with the equalization settings, but it sounds more balanced with this one and also a lot louder, at least to my ears. But I really do like the music mode experience, well, when I'm listening to music, and preferably when I'm holding it here in portrait mode. The speakers do get nice and loud though, although, like I mentioned, I feel like it gets louder on the theater mode, and it also just depends upon the content, but this can get nice and loud. Loud for speakerphone. I have no trouble with it for GPS. I would ultimately say that this is not my favorite setup, although this does sound quite nice, especially compared to something like my Samsung phone that sounds quite muffled because of the waterproofing. So compared to other things, it's quite nice, but it almost feels like a step down in comparison to my beloved HTC phones from before. Now spec-wise, the 10 is a definite win, and I find it to be very worth it because it's so comparable to everything else out on the market right now. We have the Snapdragon 820, the Adreno 530 GPU, pick your poison. All of these are really great performing phones. We've got 4 gigabytes of RAM in all of these. They have 32 gigabytes of internal storage and also expandable. All of these guys are expandable, so everything compares very, very well. You're not being shortchanged in the spec department in any way here. Benchmark-wise, they all pretty much score the same across the board for the CPU scores and for the GPU scores as well. As shown by looking at GFX Bench for some GPU scores, they really all look very similar, so there isn't much question, performance-wise, that this can't handle things. Game performance has been pretty much without a hitch, although once in a while I do notice that this can get quite toasty. Not all the time, but if you're running a bunch of benchmarks, for example, and playing Asphalt 8 for over a half hour, it can get a little on the warm side. And just like anything else, I see that it throttles over time. In the few tests that I did, it seems the S7 holds up a little bit better in the frame rate department. This device is also very nice and snappy. You do see some frame drops here and there. But opening up applications is a breeze. You've got 4 gigabytes of RAM on this thing. So I'm able to open up a lot of applications and have no issues whatsoever with RAM management. This is a very, very solidly performing device, and I have no complaints that I've been able to see so far. Plus, HTC has added their Boost Plus app, which you can actually download underneath the Play Store for any phone. You can boost your RAM, you can clear up junk files, cache files. You're able to use Smart Boost, so you can automatically clear memory in the background to optimize your phone's performance all the time. That's something I haven't quite tried yet. But this phone really is centered around performance, especially if you look at this, you don't have a lot of application clutter, which is really nice. HTC has worked alongside Google to get rid of duplicate applications, so now you have a calendar application. This is actually Google's. The photo application is, well, Google Photos. So there's not a lot of extra adware onto this. Of course, you've got some tools, but this is not a bloated down phone. I also noticed that the touch latency on this device is very, very low. And HTC does brag about that. So I've been very happy with HTC's clean interface. Here we have Android 6.0.1. This is quite vanilla Android, at least as much as Sense is considered. As we all have seen, HTC really has left Android pretty much alone without hyper skinning the thing. They do have a little bit of their own flair though, some features that I actually quite like. So the first thing that they've added here is the theming. This isn't Google Launcher, you know, because when you go to the side you do still have blink feed, which I like. But theming is pretty nice. So you can change your theme. So you've got your classic layout where you can see that there's actually not many icons. I wish you could fit more here. That seems to be the same across all the themes that I've tried. What I've been finding really adorable is this freestyle layout. So I'm complaining about how I only have 3 icons, but here you can put stickers all over the place. And those stickers will stand as your app icons. So underneath freestyle themes, you can see you've got all kinds of cute little things. One that caught my attention is this Super Mario Land. So now you can see I've got this Super Mario theme on here, and this is absolutely adorable. With these stickers, you can see that they are labeled. I can move them around to my heart's content. Move around the Twitter one, anything that I like. I've got all these cute little characters. So it really creates a lot of personalization, but I doubt that whoever uploaded this theme has the licensing for this. I know this is free, but one thing I've been hearing is that a lot of developers' icons, for instance, have been stolen and put on the HTC theme store, and it looks like HTC hasn't really done anything about it. So although I like this theme, I am kind of conflicted about actually supporting it and using it. But I give HTC props for the ability for personalization. This is really, really nice. Of course, like before, you can go in and design your own theme should you like. You can choose the color scheme, you can choose your wallpapers, the sounds, the icons. It's little touches like this that I think really make the experience of a phone worth it for me. You still have the various gestures that I really like. If you double tap when the phone is off, it turns it on. You can double tap, turn it back off. Going from the side, that's going to execute blink feed for you. Going to the right goes to your home screen. Going up is going to unlock your phone. And down twice is going to unlock the camera for you. So those are some nice little shortcuts. For all of these to be activated, you need to be holding the phone because they are activated by working with the accelerometer. Having this fingerprint sensor here, though, kind of makes a lot of these things feel moot. Because once I put my finger down here, I've gone to the lock screen anyway, and then I can just touch on the camera application. So I'm really not quite sure what they're going for still having those gestures, but it's a nice thing to have. For other bits of flair, you still have blink feed, like I showed a moment ago. My favorite part though, my absolute favorite part though, is the display option. You can see underneath the display gestures and button setting there's color profile. So you have the option between 2 different color spaces. You have sRGB and then you have vivid. I'm going to measure these and show you what they look like. But if you want any type of color accuracy, use sRGB, and then you can also go to the vivid mode. The part that I like the most of this though is that you can mess around with the white point. The thing that I really did not like about a lot of HTC phones in the past was that the white point was so bluish, kind of greenish, grungy looking, and here I've got control over that. I'm actually able to get a pretty nice result. So if I hit sRGB, and And I usually just keep it in the middle. It feels like I'm able to get that nice D65 white point. I will measure that to see what it actually is, but to my eyes right now, it's not looking too bad. So I don't have a really nasty bluish, greenish looking display, and that is a huge thing to me. If the display doesn't look nice, I just don't care. So this display looks really nice and vibrant when I want it to. It looks more toned down when I want it to, without the white point looking really gross to me. This display gets to be bright enough, and you have the option to turn on auto brightness as well. But I think I would like it to get a little bit brighter. Visibility in sunlight isn't the greatest. I end up wishing I could get it to go a little bit brighter. You do have 564 pixels per inch on a 5.2 inch display, so the pixel density is really, really nice here. This is, as I would call it, a gorgeous LCD display. An unfortunate thing that I noticed though is that when you turn it to the side, you do get a pinkish cast to the screen. When I look at it straight on, I don't see that pink tint, but when I turn it to the side, I can definitely see a pinkish looking tint. Not sure why that is, but just pointing that out. Someone did ask me. So mostly I am very pleased with this display. 5.2 inches, the navigation is off the screen, so it's very immersive. That pixel density is insane. I really love those color profilings that I can mess around with, and also I can mess around with the white point. Very pretty, really, I think so. So how about battery life in terms of what I've noticed so far? This is 3,000 milliamp hours, a nice big battery in this chunky body here. For screen on time, I'm getting 4 hours, 37 minutes. I did run several benchmarks. I'm only at 19% here. I could have hit that 5-hour mark easily. So this phone is able to go all through the day with me, no problem whatsoever. That's when I start feeling comfortable with a phone, is when I see that it's going to last me through the day, and this does. Plus you've got a couple power saving modes, so you can decide to have it go in power saving mode when it hits 15% or whatever percentage that you would like. That is the power saver. And then you've also got your extreme power saving mode, kind of looks akin to what you have on the Galaxy S7. So a lot of functions are disabled. That looks quite familiar. And we also had that on the M9 as well. Really nice and full featured. Some things though that we don't have is we don't have inductive charging. Of course you can't remove the battery like you can with the LG G5. A lot of people really love that. We also do not have the water resistancy that the Galaxy S7 has. This is fantastic for water resistancy. I've called this thing rubber ducky because I can take it in the tub with me with no problem. I've heard you can spray this very slightly, but that's about it. You do not want to expose this to water, and also it's not dust tight either. HTC had mentioned that in order to get this build the way they want it to, they had to sacrifice some things, and I can understand that. So keep this guy away from water and from dust. The last thing that I want to mention a little bit about, because I haven't had tons of time to play with these, are the cameras. I am so thrilled to have optical image stabilization, first time ever in the world, on a front-facing camera. 5 megapixels, because I like to video blog a lot and talk to my screen, so I want to test that out a little bit, show you what that looks like and if it actually makes any difference at all. And then I just want to show you some photo samples and video samples. So yet again, I'm trying to see if I can get this camera to focus, testing out the optical image stabilization on the HTC 10. Not so convinced just yet, but in theory this is really nice. You can walk around and it should stay stabilized and also focused on my face. I really don't know what it is about this front-facing camera, but it really does not seem to want to grab a focus. I really don't know. And here I'm recording on the HTC 10 walking, and we have optical image stabilization. So curious to see what the difference between them looks like. Recording on the front-facing camera on the Galaxy S7, but this is with just the electronic video stabilization, no optical image stabilization, so you can get a point of reference for difference. I can see that the 5 megapixel front-facing camera takes decent images, but I think that the OIS is better for images than it is for stabilizing video, because the S7 did a better job with just using EIS. Front camera OIS for video looks a bit shaky. I also often had a hard time getting the front camera to focus on me during video. In the 12 megapixel back camera images, we have a nice shallow depth of field with that f1.8 aperture lens. I find that colors look pretty nice and natural on the 10 when comparing to the Sony sensor on the Galaxy S7. I often prefer the more natural looking colors / warmer white balance of the 10 compared to the oversaturated colors and cooler white balance that I'm seeing on the S7. Though I often notice that the S7 often does better with dynamic range and getting the exposure right. Details in the 10's photos are good, and I appreciate that it doesn't have as much over-sharpening as the S7's post-processing as seen in the sharpening halos on the roof and in the trees. The 10 doesn't smooth out the details in John's beard or smear and over-sharpen the details in his shirt either. I do notice that the 10 has issues with lens flare in sunlight and also in high ambient lighting, where the S7 does not, and it tends to annoy me a little bit. In auto mode, low-light images aren't great, though there is absolutely no reason for that. HTC is favoring a fast shutter speed and high ISO instead of a longer shutter speed and lower ISO. Simple fix, Pro mode. OIS is perfectly enough to keep the image away from motion blur with the shutter open longer, though HTC has been working a lot on the camera, so I would assume they might fix that. When looking at how the autofocus performs in video, I've kind of been getting mixed results. It's definitely not as fast as something like the Galaxy S7, and I often have issues with focusing on a subject, or there's some hunting involved before it finally finds what that subject should be. Again, I'm hoping for some optimizations from HTC on their end. Still, I'm happy to see the inclusion of optical image stabilization on the back that was sorely lacking in the M9, and it works pretty well. When looking at 4K video between the 10 and the S7, it looks like the S7 has sharper video than the 10 does, although there is still plenty of detail here. Although I tend to prefer how the video of the S7 looks. So this is all that I've been noticing so far. I have to thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Erica, the technology nerd likes to film stuff. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. This is a great phone. Is it worth $700? Great. I think if you don't want to go the Samsung route and you don't want to go the LG route, this is a great option. If you're somebody who's an audiophile, for example, you have a 24-bit DAC built into this with your headphone amplifier. You don't have to get the little Bang & Olufsen module for the bottom like you do on the G5. So that is a plus that you have with this. Plug in some nice headphones and you get nice quality sound. It's an absolutely gorgeous phone, at least in my opinion. This chamfer, I didn't know if I would like it, but I do. Actually, it feels really nice in the hand. This is quite a chubby, chunky phone, but it feels really substantial. It has a little bit of rock to it with the curve on the back when you set it on a table, but it's really not bad. It feels quite stable to me. The cameras seem pretty good. I wouldn't say that they are the bestest out there, but definitely I wouldn't be afraid to use this on a day-to-day basis. Great battery life, what I've seen so far. Audio is pretty cool, fast charging. So this is a great phone to me. My favorite so far has been the Galaxy S7 Edge, although the HTC 10 is catching up in ways that I can't quite explain. So these two are almost neck and neck for me, and then this one. So it says something that I'm kind of rating it with my favoritist right now. Really great job, HTC. I'm excited to see more from you in the future. Hopefully you guys are on an upswing now. So again, thank you guys for watching, and goodbye.